83 people were arrested and $95 million in cash, along with weapons, were seized in a large-scale operation. But the whole thing started with a 4 a.m. traffic stop on Highway 52 in Minnesota. A truck bearing the familiar logo of a regional transport company was inspected as a routine winter safety procedure, without any pursuit or emergency signals, but discrepancies in the cargo data led to the discovery of a reinforced secret compartment inside the trailer, large enough to transport contraband across several states undetected. Following the initial discovery, the incident was no longer viewed as an isolated case, but became the catalyst for an extensive investigation as questions arose about how many similar trucks had traveled undetected and how many were still in operation. The winter context in the American Midwest directly impacted law enforcement efforts, as snowstorms reduced visibility, ice made highways hazardous, and extreme temperatures limited the time officers could spend outdoors during traffic stops. Consequently, routine inspections plummeted, with priority shifting to handling accidents and emergency safety situations, creating predictable gaps in the surveillance system. Meanwhile, regional transport companies became vital components of the supply chain, taking on the transport of fuel, food, heating materials, and consumer goods amid rail slowdowns and less stable air freight, making the trucks familiar, trusted, and rarely suspected. During the inspection, the driver did not request a lawyer or offer a denial, but agreed to cooperate. And within hours, federal agents realized they were touching the outer edge of a structure much larger than a single smuggling operation. The driver described a system known as a ghost fleet, which was not a separate company, but existed within a legitimate trucking business that had been operating openly for years. On paper, all data appeared normal, with clean payrolls and valid delivery schedules, but a parallel system operated discreetly underneath. According to initial testimony, this network consisted of 83 drivers, operating as a controlled group with fixed movement patterns rather than random vehicle operations. The trucks traveled through 5 states using the same routes, the same rest stops, and identical overnight schedules, without adjusting for weather, demand, or traffic flow like typical drivers. This consistency was maintained as a protective mechanism, and for investigators, that very repetition became the first warning sign, while also indicating that the scope of the case quickly extended beyond a single drug bust and showed signs of a tightly organized logistics system. This network did not use typical evasion methods, such as changing routes, using stolen vehicles, or fake license plates, but instead operated entirely within the standards of the legal transport system, with fully registered vehicles, a licensed company, and drivers carrying valid documentation. On Midwest routes, these trucks traveled alongside other legal freight vehicles without appearing distinct to traffic armors or road patrols. The vehicles passed through weigh stations and checkpoints at legal speeds, parked at approved bays, and showed no signs of trying to evade. Instead, they blended completely into the transportation environment. The difference lay in the fact that each driver followed a fixed route, repeated nightly with the same highways, exits, and delivery windows, not changing even when snowstorms slowed traffic or forced other vehicles to reroute. Operations occurred primarily at night when traffic volume was low, inspection times were short, and law enforcement priorities shifted to safety rather than detailed inspections, particularly during the coldest hours when outdoor work time was restricted. This system functioned as a parallel logistics network with 2 separate dispatch systems, one for legitimate operations and one for the network, with instructions transmitted through restricted channels and mirrored schedules, allowing the entire operation to merge into the normal flow of commerce without creating any red flags. As the investigation expanded into financial factors, federal analysts traced the money flow behind the shipments and discovered a dispersed system consisting of numerous shell companies with legitimate-sounding names like logistics consulting, vehicle leasing, or import services. Transactions were broken down into amounts in the thousands of dollars, appearing as business expenses or personal transfers, staying below bank alert thresholds and not triggering unusual fluctuations in automated surveillance systems. Rather than relying on the traditional banking system, which requires detailed reporting, the network utilized informal money transfer systems operating outside regulated institutions, with trusted intermediaries performing balancing and cross-border transfers without the need to move cash through banks, resulting in limited and difficult-to-monitor records. When transactions were aggregated from multiple sources and companies, a cash flow pattern gradually emerged, showing that over $85 million had been moved out of the U.S. over several years in a steady stream, not as large withdrawals, but as a series of small, controlled transactions, each individually unremarkable, but collectively reflecting a financial system designed to bypass common detection mechanisms. During operational analysis, another pattern was identified where the network's transport volume did not increase during favorable conditions, but instead spiked during severe blizzards when the schools closed, flights were canceled, and highways were clear of most vehicles. Data from stops, dispatch records, and seizure times showed a clear correlation between weather severity and the network's activity level, with transport frequency increasing during heavy snow, extreme temperatures, and limited visibility. During these times, law enforcement shifted priority to accident response and rescue. Inspection times were shortened, weigh stations reduced operations, and detailed inspections became rare due to hazardous working conditions. The network did not seek to directly confront or evade authorities, but instead adjusted its operations to periods when the surveillance system naturally weakened, using environmental conditions as a shield, with vehicles moving slowly, steadily, and in accordance with the weather, creating no abnormal signs. Once the structure and operating methods were fully identified, federal agencies launched an operation dubbed Operation Northern Breaker, with a synchronized plan across multiple states, identifying all drivers and related facilities and placing them under covert surveillance. When a major storm hit and the trucks began moving on their familiar schedules, authorities deployed simultaneously, stopping trucks on various routes, pulling vehicles over, and arresting drivers in a short window of time, while also conducting raids on company headquarters, dispatch centers, maintenance bays, and warehouses. Inside, agents discovered the two parallel dispatch systems, one serving legitimate operations and one encrypted to track the ghost fleet in real time, along with trailers modified with hydraulic false walls and reinforced compartments, packaging materials designed to evade K-9 units, as well as drugs, cash, and weapon components. A total of 83 people were arrested, accounts were frozen, servers were seized, and the entire communication system was neutralized, causing the trucking company to virtually cease operations overnight. Following the operation, transport activities were disrupted as deliveries stopped, contracts were canceled, and the supply chain was affected, demonstrating the degree to which the network had integrated into the standard commercial system. In the subsequent weeks, analysts continued to uncover similar patterns in other states with fixed routes, nocturnal activity, and signs of parallel systems, raising the possibility that other similar networks exist. The question remains as to how many ghost fleets are currently operating undetected. If you have any thoughts on the extent of this problem, please share them and subscribe to the channel for more content.